On the slopes of the Acropolis lies a magnificent structure called the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. It was constructed in 191 CE during the Imperial Roman period, over 600 years after the structures on the top of the Acropolis were erected. The word Odeon is related to the verb I sing, which is sufficient to realize that this was a place for musical activities. It is worth pointing out that an Odeon is not the same as a theater or amphitheater. In ancient Greek or Roman, theater was a place for plays, whereas an Odeon was for singing. An Odeon was typically a quarter the size of most theaters. The size difference was primarily due to engineering limitations, as it incorporated a wooden roof for acoustic purposes. So yes, the Odeon of Herodes Atticus did in fact have a roof, which would have been a bit of an engineering achievement for its time, given its sheer size. So you're probably asking about the lurid and tawdry details promised in the title of this video. Well, much of it has to do with Herodes Atticus himself, the Athenian scholar and Roman senator who supposedly built the Odeon in memory of his wife, Appia Annia Regilla. Herodes was born in Marathon, Greece, the son of Tiberius Claudius Atticus Herodes, who was also a Roman senator, and the first Athenian to attain a consular rank within the empire. It goes without saying that he was born into an extremely wealthy and politically connected family. The family was fairly pretentious, fancying themselves descendants of mythical Athenian kings such as Theseus and Cecrops. Herodes was privy to the best education money could afford, and in all accounts was accomplished in engineering, philosophy, and particularly rhetoric. His childhood was spent between Athens and Rome, exposing him to important social circles within the empire. In fact, while in Rome as a child, he was placed in the care of Tullus Russo, who was the grandfather of the future emperor Marcus Aurelius. Herodes furthered his career within the imperial Roman structure, and at some point his education as well as rank was sufficient that he was chosen to be the personal tutor for the two adopted sons of Emperor Antoninus Pius. These two adopted sons were the future emperors Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus. Emperor Marcus Aurelius's literary achievement is the book Meditations, which discusses ideas on Stoic philosophy, which he actually wrote in Greek rather than Latin. Although Herodes was not a Stoic philosopher, as one of Marcus Aurelius's tutors, he likely influenced the man significantly. Herodes's close proximity to the future emperors Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus greatly elevated his own social standing. So it shouldn't be surprising that Herodes's immense familial wealth, coupled with his relationship with the future emperors Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus, unlocked a marriage to Appia Annia Regilla, who, through her paternal grandfather, was related to Faustina the Elder, the wife of the Emperor Antoninus Pius. In essence, he was able to marry into the periphery of the imperial family, which must have been a huge social coup. These type of marriages at the highest level of imperial Roman society were not for love, but calculated arrangements for power, money, and connections. The lives of elite Roman and Greek women during this time period were quite different. Whereas Roman women accompanied their husbands to dinner parties and were generally more forward in displaying their culture and learning, the women of Athens were far more reserved and less public. The relationship was already pretty rocky according to ancient sources, until an incident when Herodes allegedly had his freedman beat his pregnant wife, resulting in her death. If you don't know what a Roman freedman is, it was essentially a slave that had been given his or her freedom by a legal process called manumission. Despite their freedom, Roman freedmen still had a moral taint to them, and they lacked their own social identity, with their reputation, station, and wealth being tied to their patron and the circumstances of their manumission. Many freedmen continued to work for their former owners, as the social taint they had as former slaves made it difficult to start new lives elsewhere. Although Herodes may have claimed that it was the freedman that independently beat his wife, leading to her death, there were several disconcerting aspects regarding this argument. The first is that a freedman, within the context of Greco-Roman society, often only undertook tasks at the bidding of their former master. Second, no plausible explanation as to why Herodotus' freedmen would want to beat his wife was ever provided. Third, there was no place for a freedman to run to if they committed assault or murder, as many lacked the money or means to flee, as their entire livelihood was often still attached to their former owners. Fourth, Regilla would have been surrounded by countless servants and slaves to defend her if there was an unsanctioned attack. Fifth, there was a general perception that Herodotus was not above corporal punishment of his wife. Herodotus' good friend, Philostratus, even wrote, in his book Lives of the Sophists, Herodotus ordered his freedman Alcimedon to beat her for some slight fault, as if to suggest that the intent was to just physically punish Regilla rather than intentionally kill her. Finally, the sixth and most important issue with Herodotus' argument is that the freedman in question, Alcimedon, was not punished. It defies belief that a freedman, who at that time would not have been considered a Roman citizen or protected under the law, would remain largely unpunished by Herodotus for either intentionally or unintentionally killing his wife. As his wife came from a powerful Roman family, her brother, a Roman consul at that time, leveled charges of murder against Herodotus. As a Roman senator, Herodotus had to defend himself in the Roman Senate. By all accounts, Herodotus was highly accomplished in rhetoric and oration. In fact, as a practicing sophist, he had founded one of the leading academies in the empire, known as the Clepsydrion, dedicated largely to rhetoric. Perhaps it was his amazing oratory skills when he defended himself. Perhaps it was his massive wealth in bribing other senators or members of the tribunal. Perhaps it was his high social station as a former consul in intimidating or convincing others of his innocence. Or perhaps it was his connection to Emperor Antoninus Pius and the future co-emperors Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus. But whatever the case, he was found innocent of the murder charge. Following the death of his wife, his relationship with his only surviving son, Bradus, was extremely strained. According to accounts of individuals friendly with Herodotus, his son Bradus was slow-witted and of questionable moral character, given his alleged propensity to drink and womanize. However, we can never be sure if this was in fact the truth, or Herodotus' own tainted view of his son. Perhaps his son reminded him too much of his wife, or perhaps his own son suspected that Herodotus was instrumental in his mother's death. But we do know that this situation became so untenable that he disinherited his only son and in fact only surviving child. As I mentioned earlier, the Odeon was built and dedicated in memory of Herodotus' wife, but little does the tourist realize that in one of life's great ironies, he was memorializing a wife that he quite possibly ordered the death of. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and check out my other videos on the Acropolis.